Facebook. Oh, I just
Hey, Abby, we see your screen. Oh, or no, that's Andy, sorry. Yeah.
I was gonna say my screen is just like the shared screen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Don.
Morning.
Beautiful morning.
Yes, it is a nice morning out. How are you doing?
Well, I'm having some problems with my bleeding again. I may have to go to the hospital. I'll find out when the doctor comes out. He'll decide what.
I
Take it easy.
I hope you feel better soon. I hope that they're able to figure that out.
Right.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Paint Branch Unitarian Universalist Church. We will all be muted. Our worship leader for this morning, Nigam, will introduce our prelude music.
This prelude, Daya Kardan Bhakti Ka, was written by Ajit Vadkai and arranged by Sanjeev Ramabhadran. It asks for the gift of devotion so that we can live together in harmony with service as our creed.
Thank you, David. Well, good morning to all, and a special hello to any visitors with us this morning. I am Ebony Contreras, your worship associate. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am part of a team that works with service leaders and staff to craft and produce our worship services. We are officially a welcoming Unitarian Universalist congregation. That means we have committed as a community to radical inclusion, to creating a space that honors every part of our identities, backgrounds, and experiences, particularly as it relates to LGBTQ people. We are a faith community that has also adopted the 8th principle to our list of principles in which we affirm and promote and hold as strong values and moral guides. We proclaim that we will work to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. Our 8 principles express our values. They are ideals to drive action. We are Paint Branch. We are from all over. We have a range of shapes and sizes, appearances, and identities. We have differing physical abilities. We have different theologies and philosophies, and we've been waiting for you to join us here. And speaking of here, we acknowledge that the land where our church building stands is the ancestral home to the Piscataway people who settled this region thousands of years ago, extending from the Potomac River toward the Chesapeake Bay. Whatever brought you online this morning, we are glad you are here. We're recording on Facebook Live and Zoom. And Paint Branch also has a YouTube channel that you can watch recordings of our services on. We invite you to participate from your home and singing, sharing and chalice lighting, and sharing joys and sorrows in the chat. All questions are welcome in the chat as well. You're also invited to join us after service in this main room, where we will enjoy a Q&A with our worship leader, Nigam. To get to know us better, please send your contact info to engagement@pbuuc.org. Now for some announcements, and we have two. The first announcement is a farewell get-together for Reverend Lynn Strauss next Sunday after service. So please save the date, which is Sunday, July 18th. And that's Reverend Lynn's last day in the pulpit at Paint Branch. We will gather in the main room after service to express our appreciation and say farewell to her. More details to come in the week ahead. The last announcement is that on July 27th at 7 p.m., we will host our second Adult Faith Development class of the summer. Please join us for Mysticism in Modern Times, Historic and Urban Practices, taught by our own Eric Eldridge and Renee Katz. We will grow in our understanding of mystical practices and the mystical tradition of the world's major religions. We'll focus on modern mystical practices that are useful in daily life from an American context. And we'll use a list of about 13 tools and universal symbols as taught in modern, inclusive tradition of Wicca. No pre-registration is required. Simply email me, Ebony Contreras, for a Zoom link, or you can visit our Adult Faith Development Facebook page where the link is going to be posted. So right now, in chat, please say how many people are in attendance via your connection. This will help us to confirm how many are attending services today. And so now, before we move into our call to worship, if you can just turn on your camera if you're comfortable and say hello.
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 Good morning.
Yeah.
Greetings,
Hi,
everyone.
everybody. Good morning.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Oh.
Here.
Morning.
Paul is here.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. So now, our worship leader for today, Raj Nigam, he will lead us in our call to worship.
This call to worship was written by Kalidas, Indian poet who lived in the 4th, 5th century CE, about 1800 years ago. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence. The bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
Thank you, Raj. Now, Ken Red will light our chalice. And Ken has been a member of Paint Branch for about 25 years and a UU for about 30 years. In addition to his service for Paint Branch, he's also a trustee for the Meadville Lombard Theological School. Thank you for lighting the chalice today, Ken.
Thank you, Ebony, and welcome to everyone. It's good to see so many friendly faces. I will now light the chalice for today's service. Oop. And please join me in follow along as I will read the unison chalice lighting. We light the chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is the church of the open mind, the helping hands, the loving heart, and the radiant spirit. Encendamos este cáliz para celebrar el Universalísimo. Esta es la iglesia de las mente abierta, de los manos amigos, del amor del corazón y del espíritu radiante. Thank you and welcome again.
Thank you, Ken. And now we will have a story by Nigam, and it's called The Hiding Place. And this story is a 1,000-year-old Hindu oral tradition story. So I'm really excited to hear it. Raj.
Yes. I grew up with this story in my childhood, and it was passed down to me by my parents. I don't know the name of the author. It originated many centuries ago, as Ebony mentioned, as part of the oral tradition. It is my version of what I was given. And I came up with this title, The Hiding Place. In this story, the maker is referred to as she. That is not an attempt to be cute or to sound progressive. It just reflects what I grew up with. When the maker had created the universe and the earth, she was happy to see her work done. And now that she was free of the frenzy that had overtaken her, she got in a playful mood. She said to herself, "Many of the beings I have created will accept me for what I am and for what I have done. But there is one being to whom I have given extra intelligence. Oh, those humans. Sooner or later, they are bound to question their creation and to seek me out. Let me hide and see how long it takes them to find me. I might as well have some fun. Now let's see, where shall I hide? Where shall I hide?" It has to be something with a fundamental challenge, and yet it has to go beyond the intelligence that I have given them. First, she thought of hiding on the highest mountain. But the humans will develop clothing. They will get used to the harsh climates. They might even adapt to low oxygen, and then they will find me. That would be too simple. So then she thought of hiding in the deepest ocean. But these humans will develop machines, and with their help, will be able to dive to great depths, and then they will find me. That would not be too much fun either. So she gave up on that idea also. Then the moon occurred to her. But one day the humans will develop rockets and associated paraphernalia and get to the moon also. That would be just a matter of time. She rejected that too, but was now beginning to feel frustrated. Where, oh, where can I hide? The maker thought. I want to give the humans a fundamental challenge, but I also want them to enjoy the game of finding me. She thought, and she thought, and she thought. Finally, as she was about to give up, a big smile spread on her face, and that gave away the fact that she had indeed hit on a solution. She laughed to herself, saying, "Finally, I have thought of a place. It is simple, yet hard to find. It is near and yet quite far. It is obvious and yet mysterious. Yes, that's it." Then the maker, with a twinkle in her eye, said, "Here's what I will do. I will hide myself in the heart of each and every being. And now, please join us in singing hymn 128, For All That Is Our Life.
Thank you, David. Beautiful hymn. For all that is our life, for needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks for all that is our life. May we not just hear these words, may we live these words, be these words. Our worship leader for this morning's service, Raj Nigam, knows a little bit about Paint Branch. This past May, he taught a 2-part class on Hinduism for our adult faith development program. After my reflection, or actually during the reflection, you'll see a link to these 2 video recordings in the chat so that you can access them. But Raj was born and raised in India, visits often, and has been in the United States for over 50 years. During that time, he served as the president on the board of trustees and held numerous other leadership positions at his UU congregation in Princeton, New Jersey. I'm so honored to have Raj speak with us today. After attending his class on Hinduism, I was inspired to learn more about the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita means the song by God. It's an ancient Indian text and one of the holy scriptures of Hinduism. It reads as a dialogue between a prince and the Hindu deity Krishna. This Hindu holy book is a 700-verse ancient Hindu epic. From a Hindu perspective, it addresses ethical, spiritual, and philosophical concerns. I get the understanding that most scholars agree the origin of the Gita is pre-Christian, and most of the writings, not all, but most, were written before the Holy Bible. The Gita was certainly written before the New Testament, for example. I also understand that many scholars believe Hinduism has the oldest roots among all religions, if you're not including the various animistic and prehistoric shamanistic traditions, which some view as more of a practice and philosophy than a religion. As I reflect on Hinduism, I have a hard time separating what is Hinduism, the religion, from Hinduism, the culture. According to the Pew Research Center, by 2050, India will have the world's largest populations of both Hindus and Muslims. Right now, at least 95% of all Hindus live in India. With so many Hindus concentrated in one place, what is religion and what is cultural practice seem to become one in a beautiful way. I know when I think of India and Hinduism, I think of Mahatma Gandhi. Before Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated for preaching love, peace, and freedom, he had some choice words to share with Christians. As Unitarian Universalists, one of the sources in which we affirm and promote are Jewish and Christian teachings. So Gandhi learned about Christianity. He reads the Bible and then he looks out into the world at people who call themselves Christians. He says, and I quote, "You Christians, especially missionaries, should begin to live more like Christ. You should spread the gospel of love, and you should study non-Christian faiths to have more sympathetic understanding of their faiths." I love this. I want to jump up and cheer and say, yes, exactly. I believe as Unitarian Universalists, our faith is uniquely situated, perfectly prepared to follow through on these wise words from one of the world's most respected and effective faith leaders. Then in 1925, when asked about the teaching of the Hindu ancient holy book, the Gita, Gandhi says, and I quote, "Hinduism, as I know it entirely, satisfies my soul, fills my whole being. When doubts haunt me, when disappointments stare me in the face, and when I see not one ray of light on the horizon, I turn to the Bhagavad Gita and find a verse to comfort me. I immediately begin to smile in the midst of overwhelming sorrow. My life has been full of tragedies, and if they have not left any visible and indelible effect on me, I owe it to the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita." His gratefulness and commitment to his faith are deeply felt. And now, I'm going to share with you a few scriptures from the Bhagavad Gita holy book. It is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live in imitation of someone else's life with perfection. No one does good work will ever come to a bad end, either here or in the other world. Man is made by his belief. As he believes, so he is. The wise work for the welfare of the world without thought for themselves. Those who are motivated only by desire for the fruits of action are miserable, for they are constantly anxious about the results of what they do. As a human being puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts the new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Amen. As we shift into our intonation, of joys and sorrows. I'd like to also share one more visual. You know how each Sunday we show a lotus flower during our meditative silence? Well, as I learned more about Hinduism, I learned that in Hinduism, the lotus flower is a famous symbol of eternity, plenty, purity, enlightenment, and good fortune. It's often represented by the Hindu goddess of wealth, often depicted with a lotus flower. The lotus flower is a water flower native to Asia. It flourishes in India and China. The core of this symbolism includes the ability to perform one's duty without being influenced by selfish or individualistic desires. And now we will hear from Jim Flaherty.
Good morning. I'm a member of Pastoral Care Associates team, along with Kathy Bartolomeo and Lynn Lewison. A reminder that you can find contact information posted in the chat if you would like to be in touch with Reverend Lynn Strauss or a member of Pastoral Care. Let's take time now to join our hearts and minds as we reflect on the joys and sorrows in our lives. Sometimes the sharing in community of significant life experiences can strengthen the bonds between us and also ease our burdens. I invite you now to share your joys and sorrows in the chat. And for the intonation music, David Chapman will play the Gitanjali chant, and David offers us this information on the piece. The text comes from Bengali poet and author Rabindranath Tagore, set to music by Craig Hella Johnson. Tagore was the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913, and his profoundly beautiful collection entitled Gitanjali, or Song Offerings, brings endless riches to the reader. And now our intonation. Thank you, David. Let's now allow for 30 seconds of silence to acknowledge all that has been shared, as well as those joys and sorrows which were not expressed at this time. May we hold one another in love and kindness, so that this congregation may be a source of strength and comfort, courage and hope in the days and weeks ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Before I start, I want to especially thank Ebony Contreras, David Chapman, Jim Flaherty, Ken Red, Melissa Graham, and Andy McIntyre for the help they have provided me. And not to mention they and many unnamed others who work behind the scene to make all this for Sunday service possible for all of us. And especially to David for his music and Ebony for her reflection. She knows a lot more than she lets on. Gita is a small subset of one of the two classic Hindu scriptures. It was written around 500 to 200 BCE. It is an ancient story about two first cousin families who ruled near New Delhi. One set of cousins tricked the other set of 5 brothers, in a dice game and even won their kingdom. According to the terms agreed upon, the 5 brothers had to give up their kingdom for 13 years and live in the forest for the duration. Well, they survived and came back to claim their kingdom. The head of the first set of cousins basically told them, I rule the kingdom. If you want it, come and get it. So war was declared. The chief warrior among the 5 brothers was the third one, named Arjun. He was a world-renowned archer and leader. He requested Krishna, an incarnation of God, to be his charioteer. These are the only 2 names you will have to remember: Arjun, the warrior, and Krishna, the charioteer. Imagine the scene on the dawn of the appointed day. Tens of thousands of workers are lined up, ready to do battle. Some are in chariots, several on horseback, and thousands on foot. Their swords polished, their lances and arrows sharpened, and their goodbyes said. The best of the war machinery has been mobilized, ready to rain destruction. But as the countdown is proceeding, Arjun is not happy. Remember, he is the military leader of the 5 brothers. Finally, he beats the countdown by asking Krishna to place his chariot between the 2 armies. This creates a huge stir, but Arjun is too engrossed in his own thoughts. The magnitude of the real problem has finally hit him. No matter where he turned, he sees playmates, uncles, teachers, cousins, and friends. And so despair and sorrow overcome him. He finally says to Krishna, "When I see all my kinsmen, Krishna, who have come here on this field of battle, life goes from my limbs and they sink. A trembling overcomes my body. And I see the foreboding of evil, Krishna. I cannot foresee any glory if I kill my own kinsmen in the sacrifice of battle. Shall we not, we who see the evil of destruction, shall we not refrain from this terrible deed? O day of darkness, what evil spirit moved our minds when for the sake of an earthly kingdom, we came to this field of battle, ready to kill our own people? O Lord, I don't bargain for this. I will not fight." So saying, Arjun put his bow and arrows down, his mind completely overcome by despair and sorrow. Thus ends the first chapter of Gita. The remaining 17 chapters are a discourse by Krishna to Arjun, detailing why and how he should fight so he can win. In other words, Krishna describes the art of winning. Let's pause to look from Arjun's perspective. It is not for lack of skills or experience that he is hurting. Plus, the 5 brothers are fighting for a just cause to get back their kingdom under the terms everyone had agreed to. So why is Arjun refusing to fight this time? It is because for the first time, the people he is facing in the battlefield are the ones that he has love for, feelings for. He's in an intense conflict between the love he has for those facing him and his duty to help establish justice. It is a struggle of love versus duty. Both of these forces are strong and equally powerful in him, so much so that he is in a freeze. Krishna recognizes Arjun's problem and decides to address the sorrow first. He says, "Arjun, you say that you are confused and in sorrow, but there is no legitimate cause for sorrow." Krishna sees Arjun as being overwhelmed and feeling very limited. And that's very understandable. Look at the magnitude of the problem Arjun is facing compared to his resources to deal with the problem. Gita emphasizes with that, but also recognizes that humans are always talking in terms of several limitations. We talk of a narrow band of time when we exist. This is time limitation. We talk in terms of being present at only one place at a given time, and that is space limitation. Then consider a rose. It has its own objectness, its own quality to be a rose, and it is limited as it has no treeness or dogness. That is object limitation. I have mentioned only 3, but that's not the end of it. There are many ways we designate ourselves as limited beings. Gita asserts that these limitations mean little when we examine who we really are. It goes on to show that while our time, space, object, and other limitations may be important components of us, we are beyond them. And we are ultimately led to say I'm someone who is aware of and above and beyond my body, my senses, my memories, my emotions, and even my knowledge. The total transcends the sum of all the parts. It is the essence of the awarer, the awareness, the divinity in us. And further, this core, this awareness, this being, the wisdom, this divinity, whatever you want to call it, is limitless. Switch the focus to the core, the divinity, and the limits disappear. And no means of destruction have the power to destroy your divinity. Knowing ourselves to be divinity is a cause for joy. There is no cause for sorrow. This is the first teaching of Gita, of Krishna. It is the understanding of our being, our divinity, our limitlessness. If you are having trouble with your limitlessness, your divinity, let me offer an alternative, a collective rather than an individual look. Look at us humans. Of the millions of species on this planet, we are the only ones who pushed our intellect to overcome limitations of our bodies. After all, we can't run very fast. We can't see very far. We can't survive the cold very well. We can't lift heavy objects, among other things. But we developed and shaped things our way. We are the species to reckon with. We have indeed come a very long way from Serengeti. If you still have trouble with limitlessness or divinity, then at least think in terms of near limitlessness for us humans. Let's go back to the battlefield. Arjun, being very astute, is quick to draw a particular conclusion from this first teaching. He asks Krishna, so why should I act? A person who understands limitlessness, who knows that the being is indestructible, will have very few attachments and so will gain inner peace and tranquility. Armed with that knowledge and serenity, why should such a person ever act? In other words, Arjun says that he understands why he should not be sorrowful, but then he still doesn't have to fight. This gives Krishna the opening to shift from the being of Arjun to Arjun the human. Krishna starts out small by saying, even for a moment, we cannot be actionless. We still have to breathe, eat, sleep, move. Being actionless will just not do it. Then Krishna dives deeper. How did we get the food we eat? There are others performing action, such as tilling the fields and harvesting the crops, so that we can live. They are giving of themselves. And if we only take, it will not lead to any relationship, let alone a lasting community. There has to be give and take. We have to respect interdependence. To emphasize this aspect of relationships and community in an interconnected, interdependent web, Gita says that we have a duty to act. We depend on others and so have a duty to others. Both Unitarian Universalism and Gita emphasize that we are part of an interdependent web. But Gita goes further by saying that that imposes on us a duty to act. But what kind of duty? What kind of actions are imposed on us? The answer is extraordinary duties and extraordinary actions. Why is that? because we are extraordinary beings. In addition to our divinity, we have an intellect that is the very best around. And these extraordinary gifts, this nobility, imposes extraordinary obligations on us. Noblesse oblige. Obligations to stand up and fight for harder and bigger things like justice, equity, grace, compassion. According to Gita, our duties must be in sync with our nobility. So we must stand up and fight for what is right. But Arjun's confusion surfaces anew. He says, Krishna, first you tell me that I'm limitless and so are the others, and I understand that. Then you tell me that I have an obligation to act to enforce justice and equity. And I understand that too. I understand the two separately. But how do I reconcile the two when doing my duty conflicts with my love? When doing my duty would entail killing my relatives and my friends. Notice, this is a different confusion. It is one of integration. How do we reconcile such a conflict between love and duty, between our divinity and our humanness? Krishna's solution is the heart of Gita. It permits the being, the limitlessness, to operate through a limited body in a limited context of time, space, and other limitations we impose on ourselves. It is indeed a very practical solution. Krishna, having addressed the question of why Arjun should act, he now addresses the question of how one should act. The answer lies in the most quoted line of Gita. Karmanye ev adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan. To action alone hast thou a right, and never at all to its results. To action alone hast thou a right, and never at all to its results. We have no right over the results of action. It does not mean that we should do action without expecting the results. Not expecting results is being too naive. The results are always there. What it means is that we do have a choice over action, but never over the results of the action. Let me take a simple example. In tennis, if I make a hard angular shot from near the net, will I win the point? Not necessarily. A lot depends on my opponent's position, anticipation, and skills. Factors I do not control. So even in this simple example, I'm not sure of the result. Gita says that since there are always uncontrollable factors, hence we cannot control the outcome, the results. And so, since we do not control the results, then logically, we cannot, should not put any weight on the results. Gita thus asks us to remove all likes and dislikes for the results and worry only about the things we control, our effort and time. This is the principle of disinterestedness, not in doing action, for that we must, not in randomly choosing an action, for our action should push for the desired results, but disinterestedness in the actual results of the action. This is karma yoga. It is an attitude towards action. It is called for doing our duty and letting go of our likes and dislikes for the results. Let's go back to the battlefield. Arjun had come to fight to enforce justice, but found himself in a love versus duty confrontation. And that is when Krishna spells out three main teachings. First, know thyself. Understand your limitlessness, your divinity. You have infinite worth, and so does everyone else. Second, you have to act. You are part of an interdependent web, and so you have duties. Your talents and abilities being the best force the tougher duties of fighting for justice and equity on you. Third, how to act. While you can choose among many actions, let go of the results of the action. Normally, we win by attaining what we start off to do. Karma yoga's disinterestedness in the actual results forces the winning away from the results to winning by adopting the right means. This raises one last important question. If we do not measure against the results, then how do we measure our actions? How do we know we are choosing the right action, the right means? This question is raised in the very last chapter of Gita. The answer is that our being, our divinity, is the one that will let us know whether or not we are choosing the right action, adopting the right means. If you had trouble with limitlessness earlier, then think again. After all, it is very appropriate that we assign the awesome responsibility of judging whether we are adopting the right means to the very best we have to offer, our divinity, our limitlessness. It is indeed beautiful that not only does Gita talk of noblesse oblige, that our nobility imposes obligations on us, but it shows that the reverse is also true. The important obligation of guiding our actions should be assigned to the noblest in us. That is why Gita assigns this task to our limitlessness, to our core. Let's go back to the battlefield one last time. But in reality, we will be visiting it again and again. Why? Because the war Gita is talking about is not the remote battle fought centuries ago. It is talking about the inner battle between love and duty. The battlefield is your mind and your heart. And you, being Arjun, will have to stand up and take action, for act we must. And when you feel overwhelmed, invoke your charioteer. The charioteer is your wisdom, your limitlessness, your being, your divinity, the very best in you. Let it be your guide. Focus on the task before you and upon the choices of actions you have. Listen to your core. Then go forth and act. And don't forget to let go of the results of those actions. And that is the art of winning. May peace and contentment be with you. So be it. And now, please join us in singing hymn 10, Immortal Love.
Thank you, David. And thank you, Raj. That was amazing. A lot to think about. The mission of this church carries on in these uncertain times and is more important than ever. We are so grateful to have the financial support of our members and friends. Please give as generously as you are able. The information to giving to Paint Branch will be posted in the chat window. This can also be found in the online order of service. Our offertory music will be Raghupati. This music is a traditional Hindu hymn arranged by Cliff Hardin. This prayer song, which pleads for peace between Muslim and Hindu, was used by Mahatma Gandhi at his daily prayer meetings. Oh, David, whoa. Oh, wow. Thank you.
My closing words are from one of the last couplets from Gita itself. Krishna ends his discourse by saying, I have declared great wisdom to you, Arjun, but go and reflect on it fully and then act as you may choose. Yes, reflect upon it fully and then act as you may choose. And may your divinity shine through again and again. Go in peace, but with a little bit of unrest. And now, please join us in singing our closing hymn 123, Fuente de Amor, Spirit of Life.
Thanks to Ebony and Raj for a great service. I will now extinguish the chalice. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday and week. And thanks again for joining the service today.
Okay, well, after the service today, you're welcome to join a breakout room, which will be put up shortly, or to remain in the main room for questions and answers with our guest speaker, Raj Nigam. Okay, and now I'll make those breakout rooms. How many people do we have?
All right, so we should see those breakout rooms pop up. But if you don't want to join a breakout room, if you want to hang out here with Raj and I, we would love to have you. And I just want to say, and I hope, Raj, did I see your wife here? Elaine? You can unmute.
Yes, my wife was also listening in and she was in the other room. Yes, I did not introduce her because I didn't want to get away, but I will if she's around, I will do it in the Q&A.
Yes, I noticed we had that visitor. That was so nice to see her in service today.
Yes.
Thank you for having her join us.
She wanted to, yes.
All right, so those of us still here in the main room, when I asked Raj if he would be open to a Q&A with us, he said, yes, of course, but also he would like feedback. So one of his joys in retirement is he actually enjoys to go and give sermons to UU congregations all over and teach classes. So he loves this stuff very much. And he would like, not just questions, but he'd like feedback on how he did and what he can do to improve, and also questions about the content so that he knows if he shares this with others in the future, he can include certain things or be more clear about things. So Q&A, we're opening up the floor. I see about 15 of us here. So feel free just to unmute and share your question or feedback.
Yes, and I'm in no hurry. There's nothing on my schedule. So as long as you keep talking and questioning and comments, I love it.
Yeah.
I would like to say thank you. That was a wonderful sermon, and I learned quite a bit. And I heard just very surface level stuff. And I know you didn't get deep into it today, but it was more than I had known before. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear more about the idea that you can't or shouldn't rely on the consequences. That you shouldn't look to the consequences in a way that limits your action when your action is right action.
That is indeed, if I may, that is indeed, to me, the very core teaching of Gita. And I also have a perspective, my own perspective is much more action-oriented rather than dogma or creed or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Gita basically says it's still, I'm not there, don't get me wrong, I'm not there, but Elaine, just a second. Elaine, you'll have to be quiet, please. Okay, so I'm sorry. That is the main teaching, which is very hard, but it basically actually, if you think through it, it is very logical. You know, there's a certain amount of scientist in me, and which says, look, if there are certain things you don't control, then you cannot derive your satisfaction from things you do not control. You can be happy if they happen, but don't expect it. And that is the main thing, which is you control what you do and you get your happiness from adopting the right things to do. Now, don't get me wrong, you have to take action and you cannot be a random action. You obviously want to go in a certain direction. So of all the actions that are possible, you indeed choose the one that is likely to make you do what you want to do.